You know what's funny about life? We grow up thinking there's a schedule. Like, there's this invisible timeline everyone is secretly following. By 10, you're supposed to be good. By 20, you're supposed to figure things out. By 30, you're supposed to be successful. And by 40, well, that's where the story quietly splits into two versions. In one version, you've made it. You're settled, responsible, stable. You've built something. And people look at you like, yeah, they've got it together. But in the other version, it's a little more uncomfortable, because there's this quiet thought that starts creeping in. Is this really it? Not in a dramatic way, not in a panic, but in a very subtle, private way. Like a whisper you don't fully admit out loud. And most people think that means something has gone wrong. But what if nothing actually went wrong? What if the whole idea that life is supposed to follow a perfect timeline was never true in the first place? Because think about it. Who actually designed that schedule? Who decided that at 30 you should be here, and at 40 you should be there? It sounds official, but it's not. It's just something we collectively accepted without questioning it. And the moment you start questioning it, something inside you starts to shift, because suddenly life stops feeling like a race you're supposed to win, and starts feeling like something you're actually experiencing. Carl Jung once hinted at something most people completely miss while they're busy chasing that timeline. He suggested that life isn't just one straight road upward. It's not just get better, achieve more, become more. Instead, he believed life has two very different halves, and most people spend their entire lives stuck in only the first half. The first half is about building your identity. It's about becoming someone. It's about learning how to function in the world, how to be accepted, how to succeed, how to survive socially, emotionally, financially. It's the phase where you're constantly asking, who am I supposed to be? And in that phase, you build layers. You build a personality, a role, a version of yourself that works in the world. You learn how to be responsible, how to be liked, how to be respected, and slowly, without even realizing it, you start becoming that version of you. But here's the part most people never question. Just because something works in the world doesn't mean it reflects who you truly are. And that's where life gets interesting. Because somewhere along the way, you start confusing your identity with your role. You start believing, this is me. But Jung would challenge that idea. He would suggest something very different, that the you built early in life is not the final version of you. It's just the starting structure, a necessary one, but not the complete picture. And then something very subtle begins to happen later in life, especially around midlife. Around 40, something starts to shift internally. It doesn't come as a crisis at first. It comes as awareness, a kind of quiet questioning. You start noticing things like, why do I not enjoy this the way I used to? Why does success feel different now? Why do I feel like I'm just going through motions sometimes? And at first, you try to fix it. You think maybe you're tired. Maybe you need change. Maybe you need motivation. But no matter what you change externally, the feeling still returns. Because it was never really about what you were doing. It was about who was doing it. And this is where Jung's idea becomes powerful, because he believed that the second half of life is not about building more identity, but about discovering what was underneath the identity all along. And that discovery doesn't always feel exciting at first. In fact, it can feel like confusion, like something is dissolving, like parts of you that used to feel important don't feel as important anymore, and that can be unsettling, because we are taught that losing clarity is a bad thing. But what if losing clarity about who you thought you were is actually the beginning of seeing more clearly than ever before? What if that confusion isn't failure, but transition. Because the moment you stop fully identifying with the role you built, you begin to notice something else. The observer. The part of you that is watching everything. The part that is not rushing, not performing, not proving anything, just aware, and that awareness changes everything. Because suddenly, life is no longer just something you are inside. It becomes something you are also witnessing. And that shift is where the second half quietly begins. Not with fireworks, not with announcements, but with a simple realization. Maybe I am not who I thought I was. And once that question opens, there is no real closing it again. Only deeper understanding. And here's the strange part. Most people never even enter the second half consciously. They just age into it. But awakened souls, they wake up inside it, and that's what this is really about. Around 40, something subtle starts to change. At first, you don't notice it clearly. It's not dramatic, it's not painful, it's just a feeling. Things that used to excite you don't hit the same anymore. People's opinions don't affect you like they used to. And success starts to feel different, not bad, just different. And you might find yourself asking, why don't I care as much anymore? Why do things feel quieter inside me? And here's the strange part. You don't actually lose interest in life. You lose interest in pretending. Pretending to be okay. Pretending to fit in. Pretending to want things you don't actually want anymore. And that shift is where awakening quietly begins. Let's be honest. No one really prepares you for this phase. You do everything you were told to do. You build a life. You take responsibility. You become stable. And then one day, you look around and think, why does this still feel like something is missing? And that feeling can confuse people, because logically everything is fine, but emotionally, something feels off. And so the mind tries to fix it. Maybe I need a new goal. Maybe I need a new relationship. Maybe I need a change of environment. But the feeling comes back. Because it was never about external life. It was about internal alignment. Carl Jung would say something very important here. When the outer life is no longer aligned with the inner self, dissatisfaction appears, not as punishment, but as guidance. For most of life, we build what Jung called the persona, the version of us that functions in society, the responsible version, the successful version, the I've got it together version, and that version is necessary early in life. It helps you survive, it helps you build, it helps you belong. But it was never meant to be permanent. And around midlife, something starts to happen. That mask starts feeling heavier, not because it's wrong, but because it no longer feels like you. You start questioning, do I actually enjoy this, or did I just learn to accept it? And slowly, you begin separating from the role you've been playing for years, not dramatically, quietly, internally. And that's where confusion begins, because you're no longer fully the old you, but not yet fully the new you. This is the part most people misunderstand. Feeling lost at this stage is not failure, it's transition. But transition doesn't feel comfortable. It feels like emptiness, like disconnection, like something inside you is off. But what's actually happening is simpler. You are becoming aware of yourself, and awareness always disrupts autopilot. So things that used to run your life unconsciously stop working the same way. Old motivations fade, old desires weaken, old reactions slow down, and instead of excitement, you feel space. But that space is not emptiness, it is clarity forming. You are no longer fully inside your old identity, you are beginning to observe it. And that observation changes everything. Now here's where it gets interesting, because something unexpected starts to happen. After the confusion, after the letting go, after the emotional quiet, a new kind of life begins to form. But it doesn't look like the first one. It's not driven by pressure. It's not driven by comparison. It's not driven by approval. It's driven by truth. You start choosing differently, not because you should, but because something inside you feels aligned. And you realize something very powerful. You were not losing life. You were losing illusion. And what remains is more real, more grounded, more honest, and strangely, more peaceful. So maybe life doesn't actually end at 40 like people think. Maybe it doesn't collapse. Maybe it doesn't slow down in the way we were told it would. Maybe it resets. But not in the way we usually imagine a reset. Not externally. Not suddenly changing your entire life overnight. Not everything falling apart so something new can begin. It's much quieter than that. It happens internally, in ways most people don't even notice at first. It's not dramatic. It's subtle, almost invisible from the outside. But inside, something starts rearranging itself. The way you see things changes. The way you feel things changes. The way you respond to life starts shifting. And the strange part is, you can still be living the same life on the outside, but something inside you no longer reacts the same way it used to. And that's where the confusion begins for many people, because they expect change to be loud. They expect life to announce that something is different. But real transformation doesn't usually do that. It moves quietly. It unfolds slowly, like something waking up inside you that was always there, just not fully noticed before. And in that space, a deeper question starts to form. Not the usual questions we ask when things feel uncertain. Not, how do I fix this? Not, how do I go back to how I used to feel? But something deeper than that, something more honest, and maybe even more uncomfortable at first. What am I finally ready to see clearly? Because that question changes everything. It takes you out of reaction and into reflection. It shifts you from trying to control your life to actually observing it. And the more you sit with that question, the more you start to realize something very important. A lot of what you were chasing before was never really about what you thought it was about. It was about identity. It was about proving something. It was about fitting into a version of life that made sense at the time. But as awareness grows, those old motivations start to feel different. Not necessarily wrong, just less necessary. And this is where something very powerful happens internally. You stop trying to become someone, and you start noticing who has been there the whole time. And once that shift begins, you don't really go back. Not because you can't, but because you see differently now. And seeing differently changes everything. The same life feels different. The same experiences feel different. Even silence starts to feel different. And that's why Jung's idea becomes so meaningful here. Because what he was pointing to wasn't just psychological development, it was transformation of perception itself. A shift in how you relate to your own mind, to your own life, to your own presence. And when perception changes, reality feels like it changes with it. So if you're going through this phase, this quiet shift, this sense that something inside you is no longer the same, don't rush to label it, don't rush to fix it, and don't rush to escape it. Because sometimes, what feels like uncertainty is actually the beginning of clarity forming in a new way, a deeper way, a more honest way, and maybe that's what this stage of life really is. Not an ending, not a decline, but a return to something more real than the version of life you were trained to live. And if that resonates with you even a little, then maybe it's not just something you heard. Maybe it's something you're already beginning to feel. And that's worth paying attention to. If this message resonated with you, Don't just scroll past it. Take a moment with it. Let it sit. And if you've noticed this shift in your own life, drop a comment and share what has started feeling different for you. Not because it's required, but because sometimes putting it into words helps you understand your own experience more clearly. And if you want more videos like this, where we explore psychology, self-awareness, and the deeper side of human experience, then subscribe and stay connected. Because some ideas aren't just meant to be watched, they're meant to stay with you.